Creating your own reality. Is it possible for me? I am Jennifer K. Hill, the Consciousness Architect, and I am here to tell you that it's not only possible, it's closer than you might think. Welcome to the show. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Regarding Consciousness. I am your host, Jennifer K. Hill, as well as CEO of Om.app or OptiMatch. And it is my joy to bring to you some of the deepest thought leaders, authors, and wisdom keepers of the world. And today we have some very special wisdom keepers joining us from Arizona, Matt and Joy Kahn. They have both been thought leaders and influencers. And I loved in our pre-show call right now, they talked about how their work is to help with the embodiment piece of spirituality. And I remember I was saying in the call, it's like, I get it. We all have that experience. You think that sometimes we're all meant to sit and meditate on a mountain and be this ethereal, floaty thing with an out-of-body experience. And yet, what matters most is the embodiment of it. And I also want to acknowledge what you both shared before we jumped on here, where you said you help to deflate people's spiritual ego. Joy and Matt, thank you so much for being here and for let's go on this roller coaster of consciousness that we're about to dive into right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Let's buckle up.
Guys, hold on to your hats and glasses and make sure your seatbelts are fastened tightly. So the first question I have for you is, how did you realize that there was dissonance between how we're showing up spiritually? If you hear somebody meditates or has visions, you think, oh, that's cool. I want to be like that person. What was that aha moment and how has that evolved for the both of you in realizing that there was something missing to this spiritual evolution and revolution that we're witnessing globally right now for humanity and the lack of embodiment? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll speak for myself. I know Matt and I have very similar journeys and experiences around the awakening of that. We were awakened and guided by our own mentors and guides on the other side. So we had what would be massive awakenings, which takes you out of life a bit. And so we had a lot of guidance from the other side. And in that, you change rapidly. So you move through these experiences where you're guided to go way out. But we were also guided to come back in and live here. So I know for myself, there was one moment when I was out living in the trees. I had been guided to sell everything that I own, sold my house, took my 3 dogs, 2 kids, moved into an RV in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. And I meditated for 8 or so hours a day. And I was in that deep, reflective, out of body, having these amazing experiences. And it was about 6 or 9 months into this journey that I began to get this message that said, you've got to go back. You didn't awaken to keep it for yourself. You didn't awaken to disappear from this place. You awakened to bring this message to the world. You awakened to help others awaken. And it began this journey of coming into body. I continued to do that. And I know Matt will share something. He has had similar epiphanies over time. But it wasn't really until we began working with so many clients. And Matt and I together have worked with tens of thousands of clients. And in those conversations, what you find is a lot of people chasing a moment. They're chasing this spiritual expansion that you were talking about. And yet their lives were a bit of a mess, or it was hard to hold on to a job or a relationship. They were still having challenges here in the 3D. And it became really clear that people were having no problem getting into a meditative state, no problem connecting with the divine. They were having a challenge letting the body enjoy the journey with them. Really being in this world with them. And so it was really the clients that, for me, really educated me on there is assistance needed in both awakening, but then bringing that awakening into the body here in the 3D.
Yeah. As I hear this question, as we're talking about this, I have a vision of when I first started my career 20 some odd years ago. And back in that day, I was living in Los Angeles with a small group of my spiritual friends that we all had visions of being a healer. I had a vision of being a best-selling author. And we'd all get together and we'd all talk about our big spiritual experiences. And week by week, I started to have couple realizations. One was that getting together and having these conversations where in the beginning felt like, yeah, this is what the world's going to be. And this is what it means to be a high vibe spiritual being. And I realized that we were actually all just having an endless circular conversation to distract ourselves from the scary but necessary steps we needed to take to step into our potential. At least I was. And I realized that I was just having this never-ending, self-referencing conversation where instead of it being about my family and my past, it was now my awakening, my vibration. And it was actually my ego had just become an ego that recreated itself with a spiritual costume. And what I had to understand about my journey that I'm grateful I realized very early on is that waking up gives us the courage and the passion and tenacity to finish the journey of growing up. And I went on in my journey. I didn't spend as much time in that group of friends, and I dove into the grit and the grind of the work that I needed to do to become the best-selling author I'm humbled to be. And what else I noticed, as someone we both have gone through, as we all will, profound awakenings of consciousness where literally my mind has exploded in my head and I thought I was hearing a gunshot in my neighborhood, and where everything about my past pours out of my ears and I have no memory of anything before this moment whatsoever. It's actually happened 5 times in my life.
Whoa.
Truly. And when I started to teach after a certain time, when I got the inspiration of I'm here to teach and transmit awakening consciousness, what I began to realize is a lot of people that were the most hell-bent on awakening out of their ego were the people that were playing characters that they liked being the least. And I found that part of the awakening journey became a bypass mechanism to turn away from the necessary emotional healing, to try to transcend the need to regulate our nervous system. And so what happened when I started teaching and really making my focus about self-love is I really wanted to become a bridge for the awakening journey and the importance of emotional healing, and to help people be equally as expanded as they are grounded, and to realize that being a human being is actually the highest spiritual experience the divine is having, as we are in a dream chasing the divine. And so these type of experiences, when Joy and I met, it was like for one of the first times in my life, I found another being talking the exact frequency of this language. And so we not only fell in love as husband and wife, but found, wow, let's unite our paths and journeys and really bring some balance and stability to the spiritual path, and give the world a chance to have the most authentic and tangible spiritual experience that can be used to really bring leadership and sovereignty to our planet.
Yeah. Beautiful. I acknowledge the work that you both are doing on this planet and that all of you are doing out there, whether you're listening, watching, we're all contributing to the global consciousness and to our own experience. Every moment of fear, every uncon word, as the Kabbalists say, that adds a sesame seed to the side of darkness or evil, whatever you choose to call it. And every act of kindness, every smile we share, every time we help another human being or are kind to ourselves, it's a sesame seed on the side for good. And I like to feel into the practicality of this. We're talking about this huge evolving and revelation that we're having as humanity, right? It's like popcorn. We're all like popping at different points. Things, though, that I just want to address from the practical standpoint, and I would love both of your wisdom on this, is how do we, let's say somebody is starting to do a little bit of work and maybe they're struggling with that and then they're embodying it, but there's still life happening. It's like this tug of war. It feels scary and painful. Okay, great. If I can sit down and meditate or do heart focused breathing or mindfulness, maybe I can quiet that amygdala and feel psychologically safe within myself for a few minutes, a few hours, if I'm lucky, a few days. Yet as human beings, it's always this tug of war, because then we go back into reality. And actually, this just came to me as I was first learning to meditate 12 or 13 years ago. I remember I would come out of meditation and talk about lack of embodiment. I would be so angry, guys. Like, I was so pissed when I would come out of meditation. I remember calling my spiritual teacher, Shannon, at the time. I was like, Shannon, what the heck? Like, I go into the state, I'm super zen, meditating, and then I'm even more reactive afterwards. Why is this happening? And I'll always remember what she said. She said, Jen, scale of 1 to 10, how stressful is your life? I'm like a 12 at the time I was building my first company. She said, great. Are you doing anything to ground yourself and to embody yourself back in your body afterwards? I was like, I didn't even know what these words she was saying. I was like, what are these words you're speaking? No, I don't. So then when she taught me that, that really helped me to shift it. Though I think for a lot of us, what I'm hearing in the collective consciousness as we're doing this right now is there's so much fear. It's, yeah, but if I could just meditate on a mountain or find that stillness, then I feel safe. But then if I go back in my body, there's the pain and the hurt and the people who have betrayed me. How do you reconcile those two and find a way that feels safe to be able to allow for both?
You want to start?
Yeah, I think I really want to acknowledge that. I think that is the reason that we're having this experience, is that there's an avoidance of being in the body, right? So we're in these bodies and we have this sense of tension inside of us of being in this body isn't okay. And it starts very early. Very young beings, we pick up on the uncomfortable experience of our parents and our siblings and friends. And it's something that we come to believe is just our story. And so we try not to be with it. We spend a lot of time escaping. And so then meditation, breath work, these practices are incredible relief from ourselves, right? So rather than being a place where we're connecting with the divine, it becomes a place of escape, of being able to rest. It's sort of like Netflixing, but in your mind, right? I just need to get away. And so shifting that first and foremost, understanding that by learning to meditate, by learning to be present and aware and observe, that's a skill that you're wanting to bring back in your body in order to bring that, in essence, a state of love into the body. So as you become the observer, you're the one that can now observe what's happening in the body, and you can observe with a kind of love that no one in your life has shown you. So you now bring to yourself this incredible, loving, nurturing energy, and you get to say, I'm here with you. So when you come back to the body, you can witness the tension, the anger, the anxiety, and say, I'm with you. I'm here with you. I'm going to bring this energy here. And I'm going to breathe in the middle of this moment. I'm going to hold my heart in the middle of this moment. I'm not going to escape you and leave you here in the body. I'm going to stay with you. Right? I'm not going to leave you. I'm here with you. This alone can be the greatest experience of self-love, the greatest experience of healing, because it allows that to be seen for the first time probably in anyone's life, really seen as there's nothing wrong with the anger, right? And as we begin that part of it, now the presence can be in the body, and that anger can be seen, felt, loved. Because we can love with anger, we can love with fear, we can love with any emotional state that's occurring can be loved. And then it can transmute into that love itself and join the love. And now we are making a huge difference in that our body is now opening up to more of that spiritual connection, is now living here. And that's what the embodiment journey is, the integration of that anger and that other space. So none of the escape, all of the letting it in.
Absolutely.
Right?
I love how succinct where you said that. And when I wrote my first book, Whatever Arises, Love That, a lot of people misunderstood it as, oh, I'm feeling angry and I love feeling angry. And it's not really what I meant. It's not about getting anger out of the way of love. It's not about going, I'm angry, I'm going to now shift into love, which is a bypass strategy. It is about the anger is next to the line to be loved. Anger won't stop being angry, but it is in line to be loved. Sadness won't stop being sad, but it is in line to be loved. Fear won't stop being fearful, but it is in line to be loved. And when we love ourselves, we are beginning to see and treat ourselves as the divine always does. And when you treat yourself as the divine treats you, you're on the same side of divinity, which is what increases the likelihood of a moment of self-realization, because we are now not separate in how we see ourselves. There's no separation between how the divine sees itself as us and how we see ourselves. We separate ourselves in view and in behavior, and then we have to struggle and survive this thing called an ego. An ego is not a bad thing whatsoever. An ego is actually the one on the spiritual journey. And so if I said a funny little thing that I channeled many years ago, imagine you're in heaven and you get the invitation to go down to earth, and you hear about this place called Earth, which is this multidimensional school where you get to train to be a spirit guide and an archangel. And that's what this program is. And you get to guide the life and the evolutionary arc of a human being. That is cool. I'm going to do that. So you go down the slide, come out, and you have a family and all this stuff. But the fine print is that the human you are guiding is the body you inhabit.
Yeah.
So the ego is actually on the spiritual journey. But the ego is the one, when it's still playing out its unconscious, unhealed wounding, is using everything as a pattern of control. So one of the most prime forms of control the ego weaponizes before it is reborn as the soul in form. That's what happened, right? The ego is the caterpillar. It goes into the chrysalis and comes out as the soul in form. That's the basis of it. What it weaponizes are options.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the greatest tricks, that when an ego is still on a certain trajectory in its path, it tries to control through options. For example, I'm feeling angry, but I'm aware of something like happiness or love. So I either weaponize that through self-judgment to say, what did I do wrong in my life to make it one, not the other? Or what spiritual trick can I pull out to change my state from one to the other? Option is what gets weaponized. And in our human journey, heroism and bravery is only inspired by people that never had an option. A woman, a mother who picks up a car to save a child,
No option.
had no option. A hero who runs into a burning building and saves children had no option. The only option is the highest option. And most people don't think they're living the highest option because they have options. And that's part of the fallacy of it until we really truly wake up. Like in my family, I was raised in an emotionally volatile family. I'm an empathic being, and I was raised to live in fire. Before I learned how to meditate, my first meditation was living in fire. And my mom and dad, God bless them, whether they were happy, sad, angry, or whatever, yelled about everything. Everything was in all caps, a very loud family. And I learned to adapt my nervous system. And I learned to study my family. And I learned to study the behavior of human beings. And I learned how to be comfortable in pure emotional fire. Why? Because I didn't have any other option.
Right.
Forced an evolution. So there's a balance between the choices that empower us. Even, for example, someone who was watching this and is in a relationship well past its due date, whether it's just a mixture of people or whether it's a traumatic situation, when someone is willing to finally advocate for themselves and rescue themselves, it's because there was no other option. And so people bury themselves in window shopping through options. They start this, they don't finish that. And the ego uses our free will of options to hide from the surrender process, the process of the caterpillar crawling into the cocoon. The caterpillar thinks it's going to weave itself some wings and be a winged caterpillar, but the caterpillar has to dissolve for a butterfly to emerge, and it comes out as something totally different. And so we love and honor the ego's journey, but the ego must dissolve in order for the soul to emerge as an embodied expression of who we are. And we love these parts of ourselves that try to use options to justify self-judgment, denial, bypassing. And we love ourselves through each level of surrender that allows the divine more space to express itself in this world through kindness, love, mercy, and forgiveness. And so it's ironic how there are times in life where options will be the inspiration that frees you and transforms your life. And there are other times where options actually what keep us the most stuck, because the most heroic moments in life, the moments where someone does something that inspires us, the basis of any inspiring TED talk is the aftermath of what happened when someone didn't have any other option. And it's very intriguing to examine that nuance.
Very deep, Matt. I've never heard it put that way. I really appreciate both the wisdom you just shared and this idea. I think of our option culture. We like things immediately right now. We have Starbucks, we have 500 options. If you're single, you have millions of billions of options. And it's both our greatest opportunity and our greatest obstacle as human beings. I see that. And then being called to mention here, and I would welcome both of your feedback on this, the imaginal cells, which is, of course, what the caterpillar turns into when it liquefies itself to become something new. I think that's what's about to happen for humanity is we're about to go through this. And most of us, when we were all talking about this before, right before we jumped on, humanity has been in the cocoon and we're about to be liquefied and something beautiful is going to emerge. And yet there's going to be a completely shift at the cellular level of who and what we all think we are. For people who are maybe are feeling that themselves. I know many of the people in the spiritual community and lovely thought leaders and so forth. I know we all talk about this very openly. For some of you, maybe it's the first time you're hearing that. And I ask you, check in and see what's true for you. Just because I say something's true doesn't mean it's true. It's just what I feel it is true for me. How do we prepare ourselves for the liquefaction, for this transmutation of who we all once were to who we're all about to become? That is the story of the heroine's journey, the hero's journey of there was who we knew ourselves to be before. As I shared with you on the before we got on the show today, I used to know myself as a jerk because I couldn't develop relationships. I couldn't connect to myself or others. And literally when people say, how did you get to where you are? It was, to your point, out of survival. I literally, the only other option was I had to study people and myself. Otherwise, I would have not made it to the point I'm at now. None of us thought I would make it this long. So how do we prepare ourselves for this process in the most beautiful way without fear and allowing it to be there and still holding love in our hearts as we begin to feel this process emerging as us and through us?
Wow, this is I really love the way you worded that question, right? Because when I think about all of the things that we're doing, it really does come back to the cells, and it comes back to the cells of the body that are all consciously responding and giving feedback, right? There's a two-way conversation happening all the time, and it's happening with the cells of our body. It's happening with the cells that are happening in our gut and our heart and our mind and with the cells around us. As we're preparing for that, we've been preparing all along through this emotional and mental mastery, right? So that's been the preparation. We're not all of a sudden getting into prep mode. We are learning to be with those emotions. But I think where we're about to step it up is in the body symptoms. So right now, there's a lot of hyper focus and micromanagement of body symptoms in a desire to reach some sort of body perfection. That if I'm spiritual, if I'm awake, if I'm present, then my body should be in perfect order. I should be healthy. I should be symptom free. And what we're experiencing is a body that is learning to communicate with us and us with the body, that is telling us things. And as we have a symptom, something happening within us, we're assuming something's wrong. So we immediately go to something must be wrong. I must not be meditating enough. I must not be thinking the right thoughts. I must not be feeling the right things. Or maybe it's someone in my life, or where can I project this? Or what haven't I learned? What teacher do I need? And really what the body is saying is it's time to not only pay attention to your emotional state, to love that, but to really be with the body. Because the changes that are happening on the inside may not come at a speed in which feels really good all the time. Right? When we experience upgrades, we experience this every day. We're receiving these doses of energy. I'm sure many people feel all the energy happening around us. And it can sometimes feel like we're being told something's wrong, or, oh, I need to, step back. I've got all this energy. I'm tired. I need to recover from that. But really what's happening is we're changing. And so our relationship with that change and that the symptoms we're experiencing aren't necessarily something wrong. They're an indicator of change. And it's our invitation to ask the body, how can I be here with you? How can I support you? How can we be on this journey of change? We're all going to be on this at a different pace, in a different time. And there are things in the body that will break down before they will heal, before they'll move us to what's next. And none of us here alive knows what that looks like. So we are developing bravery, the bravery to be with the body when the body says this pain you're feeling, this discomfort you're feeling, it's okay. Be with it, right? You can nurture this without trying to fix it. That's a kind of bravery that's going to happen really individually. And so being on that journey, I think you're already well on it. Just keep going.
Absolutely. When we talk about the polarity of good and evil, and not spoken as a judgment, but just as a actual
just
reality, evil is when mental illness, whether cultivated or inherited, becomes identified through the ego structure in such a way that it creates a righteous entitlement that is opposed to integrity versus attracted to integrity. Goodness is what we cultivate, a certain degree of mental wellness that allows us to be attracted to integrity versus an avoidance of integrity. So we have a certain degree of people, whether it's been cultivated through trauma or inherited through bloodline, that are moving from a desire and a lust for control, disempowerment, and things that are the reason why the liquefaction is going to happen is because this program is no longer being funded by the universe. This planet has outgrown the need for darkness to inspire brightness and light beings. And of course, to say that even the darkest beings are just heroes en route to being redeemed, right? The greatest villain is a hero waiting to be redeemed, and a hero is only as heroic as the villain they once were. But when we look at evil and how we're going to learn from it, and how a light being like me will bow in the presence of a predator, and I will say, thank you for making me as mercilessly in service to the light as you are serving your patterning. The question becomes, what would this world look like if people, to balance out people who are willing to, by any means necessary, act out their unwell patterning, if we were willing by any means necessary to act out integrity, what's going to happen in this world when we start not matching hatred with hate, but looking at the passion, looking at the way in which people are committed to their hatred and say, am I as committed to my integrity as they are committed to their hatred? Because light beings are very radiant. We're very sensitive. But people who act out atrocity cause light beings to turn away and shrivel up. And so if we say, I'm going to take their intensity towards pain and torment and make an equal intensity of integrity, that's when the liquefaction of a caterpillar becomes the emergence of a butterfly. And we start, because there's a certain amount of time on this planet that people like this have to be in control. What they know in their esoteric awareness is that the fabric of time, the fourth dimension, can be sped up or slowed down. So if they have 30 days left to be in power, if they can keep the world asleep, they could slow down those 30 days to become 5 years. But if we speed up the evolution of consciousness, we turn 30 days into 3 hours. The question becomes, when do we become as gung-ho about our integrity? When do we turn integrity into a Metallica concert? And the answer is when we lean on self-love And when we learn that having 100 options is actually creating more distraction, right? Why is humanity going to unite and come out the other end more evolved? Once humanity realizes there is no other option. And the only option there is to be as gangster in our integrity as people are as committed to atrocity. That's the solution.
And that comes back to the body, right?
Yeah.
Because if we are in that integrity,
That's right.
then we become so gangster and I'm going to be in that in my body. We would never create the judgment and the anxiety and the anger towards ourselves. We would love all of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And when you're loving and not trying to prove your love or have people see you a certain way, when it's not, I'm in my spiritual specialness, but just someone could judge you. I've had this experience in my life where someone judged me and my family because they thought I was spiritual and said, oh, I just think all of that is so weird. And I looked at them and I said, I really appreciate you letting me know how you feel. If there's anything else you would like to share about me, I'd love to sit down and have a chat with you about it. And I became interested in their judgment and leaned in for more. And their ego says, I was using this as an avoidance tactic. I don't want to be near you. I feel weird around you. And so they then have to create a boundary and they need to go somewhere else where their programming will work, where someone reacts. I'm only here to love. And the reason I became this most loving being, like we all do, is because you run out of options. Love is not an option. Love is how we are when all options have been so mercilessly removed from our grip.
Yeah.
I love it. From bravery to gangster integrity. Juicy things to consider. And it's interesting. I'm being called to share a vision I had a couple of years ago where I was just sitting around, no plant medicine, anything, just sitting around one day listening to one of my favorite musical artists, Estes Tone. If you've never heard them, they have a song called Inner Worlds that often I'll sit there and just start doing deep breathing and drop out of space and time and see whatever I'm meant to see in that moment. And I will always remember sitting at a full moon circle with some friends and the music starts playing and I start seeing this and tears start running down my cheeks because all of a sudden I'm dropped out of space and time and I'm shown the whole universe and everything and everyone that ever has or ever will exist. And then I'm shown the fractures in the universe that of the splits and the breaks between people and souls and energies. And then all of a sudden, just like kintsugi art, which if you might not be familiar with it, kintsugi art is a beautiful Japanese art form where you take something that has been shattered into a million pieces and you use gold to put it back together. In that moment, I was shown the universe being put back together, fraction and fraction, fractal and fractal. And that instead of kintsugi, instead of it being gold, it was love. And that unconditional love was the thing that would take these disparate pieces that had shattered amongst us over the last several billion years and allow us to come back together into the wholeness that we are. And that's really what I've heard you both share today.
Absolutely. And I love the vision you just shared. And also as an equal vision and even the place from which we live and lead from, there will be a time when, as human beings go through this awakening, where time and space are actually fully realized as a decoration that no time and no space are simply wearing. And meditation, which is a beautiful thing that we all do, meditation will actually be seen as the witness of this human adventure. And that the realization that we are spirit is simply to inspire us to make choices in our life as if we have nothing to lose. Everything we've gained will one day perish. What comes will go. And at a certain point, instead of it being the game of this too shall pass, it becomes fulfilling the destiny of what brought you into your body, which is stepping fully into life and being able to know that when you start moving forward from the most inspired, loving, integral place, and no longer waiting for the world to make this a safe place to be. And to realize that even when I feel unsafe in myself, I'm actually only feeling unsafe because I'm actually in a safe enough environment for the unsafety to be felt so safely.
Mm.
We actually start to put all these pieces together, as you so beautifully described.
Yeah.
We so beautifully allow the love to bring these shards of pieces and archetypal debris
Oh,
and to allow us all to do the most fundamentally breathtaking thing, if I can just describe this really quick, which is something that I was told a year ago. I think a year ago, could have been 10 years ago, who knows, right?
all relevant.
I was shown this and it was interesting. And it was that we come into this life, Earth, as a training program. Of
Oh,
course, this world is like a dream state and you wake up.
yep.
Of course, the objective is, in the beginning, you go through death, you return back to heaven, and you want to do it again. And the idea is I want to wake up in the dream, not once the dream
Right.
ends.
Yes.
Then the higher invitation becomes, if I can wake up so radically with the expansion of my consciousness, everything around me will become a reflection of the light and consciousness waking up in me. Then there's even a higher invitation that enlightenment will offer. And that is, can I wake up so radically, whether gradually or suddenly, that not only do I transform things around me into higher frequencies of light, but once I return to heaven after this dream is done, heaven will have evolved into new dimensions, new solar systems, new universes of higher realms of enlightenment were created because I woke up so radically in this dream that when I got back to reality, reality was shifted by how deeply I woke up. And so that's the power of this planet Earth, that Earth collectively, the beings of Earth are waking up in such a way that it is actually transforming heaven into higher dimensions. It is raising the vibration of the planet so that people don't need to inherit darkness to remember their light. And it is creating new universes and planets at an even higher frequency of light that we can even describe to give the divine newer ways to know itself.
Yes.
Wow. I'm speechless. I thank you both and I honor you, Matt and Joy, for sharing your heart, sharing your wisdom, and sharing the unfolding of the embodiment journey that you both have gone through and this process of being the doulas for the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of what it means to be an embodied human in this planet at this time, although we'll call it time for now. I'll let that be. And just acknowledge you both. And I would love to let our listeners, our viewers know, where can people follow up with you, connect with you, find your work, find your books, find all the incredible work you're both doing in the world.
Yeah, I think at this time, we'd really love to just invite everyone to come and join us at mattcon.org, where they can join our newsletter, where we just share information and events, and they can find out where we're hosting spaces where we can come together and have these conversations more.
Absolutely. Join us on the journey.
Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your wisdom. And thank you to each of you out there, wherever you're listening to this. May this have lit a spark of light somewhere within you. And I'm going to tie it back in to what we originally began with speaking about today, which was this idea of anger. And could you come to anger from a place of love? And it's so funny that you guys began that today because at 3 a.m. this morning, I woke up and where you just wake up and there's an ancient spiritual text day. Sometimes if I wake up at 3 a.m., I'm like, okay, universe, are you waking me up to go scan the spiritual text because you can get some deep wisdom? And I was feeling conflicted about something. And so often I'll pick up one of these old volumes and just ask for guidance. And this morning, what I opened up was an ancient spiritual text about how there are two types of anger. There's the anger from a parent who deeply loves their child and out of love tries to stop them from accidentally stepping into the street. And then there's the anger that is come and born from fear or from animosity or judgment. And the one anger it said was cursed, and the other anger it said is blessed. So, whatever experience, whatever emotion we choose to experience in these coming days, weeks, months, and years, may we choose the one that is blessed. May we choose the one that has love infused into it. And may we walk that path so that we can spread that love wherever we go. Thank you.